Hi there guys, welcome to another episode of the Cover Zero Show with me, your host Simon Conboy. Continuing on with the franchise and draft review series, this episode will be focusing on the Houston Texans. So what I'm doing for this series is I'm breaking down the last 10 years of records that the teams produced in the regular season, going over any head coaching changes that have happened, and then reviewing each draft class for the last 10 years. I'll explain the grading system for that once I get there. Again, if you've watched this series before, apologies for having to go through that again. And then on Friday, during the weekly review episode, I'm going to be correlating all that data. Should be a really interesting and entertaining episode, breaking some of that down, and we should be able to see some of this, whether the draft does equate to success in the regular season. Also pinpointing teams that have done certain things really well and that sort of thing. So really recommend checking that one out. So the Texans have amassed a record of 82 wins and 78 losses. Have been pretty consistent the last few years. Had Gary Kubiak for the first several years. Bill O'Brien took over in 2014 and is the head coach to this day. In that time, they've had 4 playoff appearances, each time winning a divisional crown. A lot of middling kind of records. It's one of those records that really didn't surprise me when it came out. This is a team that's finished. It's been a poor division. You haven't necessarily needed a good record to win it. A lot of 8-8 seasons in there. Only really the one outstanding kind of record at 12-4, and then the 2-14 season that a few years ago it was a bit of a disaster. But a lot of 8-8s, 9-7, 7-9. Well, no 7-9, but several 9-7 seasons, a couple of 8-8s. It sounds about right. It's been that kind of a franchise. At the minute, I think it's a very talented roster. Just the eternal search for the quarterback continues. So, getting to the draft grading, what I'm doing is I'm going through the first 3 rounds, where a team is expecting to pick up starters, contributors, grading each individual pick. If I believe it was a solid pick that's worked out, then they will get a score of +1. If the player was fine, middling, unimpressive but reasonable, that will not impact the score. If they were a bust, that will be -1. For picks from round 4 through 7, I will be selecting certain players. Most don't do anything in the league. That's been one of the most shocking aspects of carrying this out, is just how few of them actually play a snap, let alone achieve anything. I'll be highlighting individual examples and giving the team a value pick there, which will add +1 to their overall score. So, moving on to the 2007 draft. In the first round, the Texans selected Amobi Okoye, defensive tackle with the number 10 pick. He was a bust. Just not particularly good player. Did not last very long in the league. Disaster for a first round pick, really. In the third, Jacoby Jones, the wide receiver, being solid return specialist, contributing a little bit as a deep ball threat. I think solid pick just for what he offered really on special teams, and gave him some catches every now and then. But for a third rounder, that's reasonable as a contributor to the team. Moving on to 2008, we've got Dwayne Brown in the first round, 26th overall pick. I remember him being talked about as a highly developmental prospect with all the talent. Well, he's maximised that. He's been a fantastic tackle in the league, solid player on that offensive line for a number of years. It's a great pick. Nailed that one. In the third, Antoine Molden, the defensive back. He was a bust. And Steve Slayton, the running back, also in the third. They got a little bit out of him. Wasn't a bad player. Just going to go with mediocre there. Could go bust maybe. Maybe you could have higher expectations. But no, just going to go middling there. 2009 draft. Brian Cushing in the first round of the 15th overall pick. The linebacker. This is a bit of a tough one. Been very, very, very good early in his career. Came out out the gates playing very well for them. Had a lot of injuries. It's really, at this point, an underwhelming player. I'll give them a solid because I feel they've been unlucky. I think it was a pretty good pick and it worked out. It's just injuries and some bad luck there have really sabotaged his career. In the second, Connor Barwin, the pass rusher, didn't do too much for the Texans. Took him a while to develop. Really had most of his success with the Eagles. However, the talent was there. It was clearly a solid pick, even if it took a while for things to come together for him. In the third round, Antoine Caldwell, the guard, he did absolutely nothing. Goes down as a bust. And in the fourth, Glover Quinn, the defensive back / safety, he's a pretty good player. Great value in the fourth. Solid contributor all round. Moving on to the 2010 draft. In the first round, I take Kareem Jackson with the 20th overall pick. As defensive back corner. Didn't really ever work out there. That pick was a bust. The second, Ben Tate, the running back. That was a bust. And in the third, Earl Mitchell, the nose tackle. He's been a reasonable performer. I'm willing to give that a solid. Could probably go mediocre there, but I'll go solid. It is only a third round pick after all. Moving on to the 2011 draft, we've got JJ Watt with the 11th overall pick. Well, clearly this is an easy one, a home run. Arguably the best player in all of football. We'll see how he comes back from injury, but when he's been healthy, the best defender in football. They nailed that one. What a pick. In the second, Brooks Reed, the linebacker. Had moments, I'll go with mediocre there. Could probably go bust, but I'll be generous on this one. Also in the second, Brandon Harris, the defensive back. He has been a bust. And in the third, Derek Newton, the offensive tackle. Mediocre right tackle, but for a third round pick, pretty good starter. Maybe a low end starter, but I think it's a reasonable pick. That will go down. Oh no, that was even later than that. That's gone down as a value pick. Yeah, in that case, good job. I think that's a 7 there. My handwriting's terrible. My apologies. Moving on to the 2012 draft. We've got Whitney Merciless in the first round, 26th overall pick. He's turned into a really good player. Hasn't had the sack numbers. Played great last season opposite Jadeveon Clowney. Solid pick. I think he's an up-and-coming player. He's going to continue to get better. In the third, Devere Posey, the wide receiver. Did nothing. He's a bust. And also Brandon Brooks, the guard, in the third. He's an okay player. I'll give that a solid, pretty reasonable pick. And in the fourth, Ben Jones, the centre. That's a good value pick up there. Moving on to 2013, we've got DeAndre Hopkins in the first round. So this is one of the worst draft classes ever, 2013. They, however, got one of the best players in that draft with a 27th pick as well. That's a fantastic pick. Top quality wide receiver there. In the second, DJ Swearinger, the safety. Didn't have too much success with the Texans. Been bouncing around the league. He's an okay player. Played very well for the Cardinals last year. Could go bust. I'm going to go mediocre there. I think he's become a reasonable NFL player, even if it wasn't for the Texans. In the third, Brendan Williams, an offensive lineman. He's done nothing. He's a bust. And also in the third, Sam Montgomery. That's another bust. In the sixth, though, they got Chris Jones, a defensive lineman. Not a bad player. He is going down as a value pick. Pretty good for that. Wouldn't make it in the second or third, but pretty good at that point in the draft. 2014, being a bit more lenient with picks from the last 3 years. Of course, some of these players haven't played enough for me to make a judgment on. A bit more fence sitting as much as I hate doing it. First overall pick that year was Jadeveon Clowney. Now, I would have went bust up until last season, but he was very, very good. Fantastic run player, if not at this point in his career, the pass rusher, perhaps that the Texans were expecting to get. Made the Pro Bowl. I'm going to go with solid. I think his career trajectory is on the up. Hopefully the nagging injuries and those issues are behind him at this point. In the second, Xavier Suafio, the guard, undecided at this point. Third, CJ Fedorowicz, the tight end. I'm going to give that sod for a third round pick. I think he's shown some stuff with good, better quarterback play. I think he'll continue to be a solid player. And in the third, Louis Nix, the nose tackle. He's been an absolute bust in the NFL. He also picked up Alfred Blue in the sixth that year, the running back. I think he's a pretty good value pick. He's played pretty well for the Texans when he's had the opportunity. Perfectly fine value at that stage in the draft. 2015 draft, Kevin Johnson, 16th overall pick at corner, undecided at this point. In the second, Bernard McKinney, the linebacker. I think he's a pretty good player for them. I'm willing to give that solid. Should continue to get better. And in the third, Jalen Strong. We'll wait and see there. Has not really shown much to this point. Maybe edging towards bust status. Last year's draft, Will Fuller, the 23rd overall selection, wide receiver. Started the season fantastic. Then forgot how to catch. Undecided at this point. In the second, Nick Martin, the centre, missed the entire season. I think he'll go on to be a really good player, but at this point it's hard to say. And in the third, Braxton Miller, who they're converting into a wide receiver. It's unknown how that's going to pan out at this stage. So in total, the Texans, I've got 12 solid to home run picks here. 5 value picks, which is about average, and 10 busts, giving them a +7 score in total, which is pretty good. They've got a very good roster at the moment, so I wasn't surprised to see that was the case. It's just the offense, they need to get that quarterback position in line, and then they can be contending. And defensively, of course, they're a fantastic unit, and they've drafted a lot of those players. So they've done a fantastic job there. In the first round, they've been pretty effective. 10 total picks, 6 that have worked out for them. Only the 2 busts and a couple that I'm undecided on. Depending how they pan out, that could be a 7 or an 8 out of 10 that have worked out, which would be one of the highest ratios. Done a solid job all round. Not necessarily found a huge amount of players, but those that they have found through the draft have tended towards being very, very good NFL players and heavy contributors to the team. So on the higher end of the score, as I say, check out the Friday episode. You'll get a lot more context for these particular numbers and these scores, and you'll get to see sort of where specific teams rank in specific aspects of the draft. So yeah, they've done a good job in the last few years. Had to, of course. It's not a particularly new franchise. I remember the early years of the Texans when they were Andre Johnson and mediocrity. So yeah, they've come a long way. If they can get that quarterback, things will be looking great. What do you guys think of this series so far, though? Please let me know. I've really enjoyed the research and the production for this. As I say, the Friday episode will bring all this together. I hope be really informative and interesting episode. Like, share, subscribe. I really appreciate when people do that. Any comments, whether it's the Cover Zero Facebook page, me over Twitter directly, or below on YouTube, I'll do my absolute best to get back to everybody. I've really enjoyed this series so far. Hope you have too. If you have, please check out some more of the videos. And as always, go Bucks.